you and me, we're enthusiasts. And yeah, we're pretty spoiled when it comes to flavors of cool cars to choose from. But picking the right one, that can be tricky. Some are just too damn expensive, and others tempt us with their curb appeal and unrivaled power, only to spend most of their life in the shop. Well, good news. I'm Trav, your new favorite YouTube car whisperer. And today, on the Ideal List, I've picked 5 Temptresses plus an honorable mention that can be made pretty reliable. And you'll want to stick around because at the end, I'll tell you the idealist of them all. Yeah, the one I would put my own cold hard cash into. Yeah, we're kicking things off with the big one. The daddy of super saloons. The BMW M5. Specifically the E60 M5 with that glorious V10. I've got a little thing for V10s. Now, no doubt you've heard the horror stories of electrical problems, rear diffs failing, active sway bars leaking, throttle actuators breaking, and the big one, rod bearing failure. Truth is, you can get ahead of all of these problems. It's gonna take a little time and money, but seeing as you can pick one of these up for less than $20,000, the juice just might be worth the squeeze. Start by making sure the negative battery cable, which includes the intelligent battery sensor, is in good shape. And if it's not working properly, go ahead and replace it. These cars have a strict differential fluid exchange interval that has to be followed. So make sure you've got good clean fluid and the required friction modifier in it. And like all mechanical parts of all cars, make sure it's nice and warmed up before you pretend to be Ken Block. The sway bar fluid needs to be changed as well. And normally, when they leak, it's just one of the fittings, so you might not have to replace the whole bar. Throttle actuators can be rebuilt with a rebuild kit, and it's really not that difficult once you've done it. Lastly, those rod bearings. BMW E60 and E90 rod bearings probably deserve their own video, but just know failure isn't quite as common as the internet would like to make you believe. And if you're warming it up gently and changing your oil regularly, just send an oil sample out for analysis and keep an eye on it. The WRX and WRX STI have a lot to offer on paper. Symmetrical all-wheel drive and a turbocharged 4-pot boxer engine. Sprinkle in some rally pedigree and what's not to like? Well, a couple things. Head gaskets for one. And that's an engine out job and it's not cheap, but lucky for you, there's a way to avoid it. Most of them that I've seen with head gasket problems stem from inadequate cool down time. You can't just rip it down the street at full boost, then pull up to the car meet and just immediately shut it down. The block in the cylinder heads will cool at different rates, and the gasket won't survive that a bunch of times. So a few minutes before you get to your Hobby Lobby cars and coffee, just take it easy and let it cool off a bit. The other thing that seems to kill these cars is improper tuning. Now, I know it's enticing to spend $300 on a tune that makes your Subi go out and catch a lot of other fast cars off guard. But guys, listen, these cars in stock form don't take extra boost well. The turbochargers just don't survive and they're prone to low speed pre-ignition, or knock, which obliterates the bottom end of the engine. My best advice? Maintain these cars religiously, warm them up and cool them down nicely, and if you're gonna start asking for more power out of it, do your research and spend the money on proper parts and tuning. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. Like the STI but want a better interior and more solid ride? Enter the B5S4, a car I know all too well. Now, you don't have to look very far on the internet to start uncovering tales of horror stories surrounding these cars. Look, the thing is, when a car like the B5S4 is working properly, there's a lot to like. To get it and keep it working like it should though, contrary to popular belief, is not actually impossible. It just involves a fairly large amount of cash. There's probably fewer parts on the S4 that don't go wrong compared to the ones that do. And honestly, if you want the best the B5 has to offer you, start with just pulling the engine. Replace the turbochargers, replace the timing belt, reseal the valve covers and chain tensioners, replace all of the brittle factory hoses, including the Y-pipe and the entire PCV system. Don't forget to do the power steering hose that lives underneath the intake manifold, and then while you're at it, pull the dashboard and replace the heater core. With all that done, you'll have yourself a pretty solid little Audi. One of my all-time favorites, actually. So if you get a good deal on a B5, and you budget another $5,000 or $6,000 or more to get all of that up to par, you'll be broke, but you'll have a badass car capable of over 500 wheel horsepower. That probably won't leave you on the side of the road anymore. Very often. Okay, honestly, if you're gonna have an SUV, they don't get much cooler than the Range Rover, except for maybe the Mercedes G-Wagon and the Lamborghini Urus. But the Urus is like $300,000, and there's no such thing as a G-Wagon for less than like 30 grand, even for an older, high mileage one. Now, believe it or not, you can actually have a reliable Land Rover. You just have to make sure you buy the right one and fix a few key things. In fact, broke boys, where are you at? I just bought one with all of the problems for only $1,500, and it even came with a blower or supercharger. Go check out the video we did on those right up there. And the truth is, in my opinion, it's absolutely an ideal car. So if you want to be cool like me and roll around in a Range Rover, well, first, don't buy any of them that have the BMW sourced V8 under the hood. Those are hot garbage. Instead, and I know this sounds crazy, go for the Jaguar sourced supercharged V8. Now, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy for recommending a British-built power plant over a German one, but I'm telling you guys, I work on hundreds of Land Rovers, and it's either the 4.2 liter supercharged V8 or the 5-liter supercharged V8, specifically the updated version that rolled out in 2013, that are the ones to have. Yes, you're gonna have to replace the air compressor and probably all of the air springs, and you're probably gonna have a few electrical bugs here and there, but for the most part, and I know I'm hounding this, but keep up on the maintenance. And you too can roll around like a Kardashian without absolutely destroying your bank account. Okay, I love the 300ZX Twin Turbo. It's one of my all-time faves, full stop. And the thing is, they're actually not that unreliable. They're a huge pain in the ass to work on, and there are actual miles of vacuum line to contend with, but honestly, not bad cars underneath it all. The key here is to buy one that's been maintained. If you buy a dumpster fire, it's gonna be an uphill battle that ultimately the only way to win is gonna be, just like the S4, pull the engine out and sort of start over. Buy the right one though, and keep it in good nick, and well, you've got yourself an ideal car. Okay, honorable mention time. Real quick, we can't talk unreliable cars without touching on the show that is Diamond Star Motors. I mean, they're not bad cars, but all too often they've been absolutely beaten to death, and then they get bought by a young gun who wants to go out and make 400 horsepower without spending the money to do it reliably. I mean, the dyno shop we use to tune all our cars literally has a liability waiver that authorizes a dyno cleaning fee before they'll let a DSM car on the rollers. If that tells you anything. Thing is, they aren't just naturally bad or unreliable cars, but they are all getting on in age, and are getting grumpy now in their mature years. They can be a ton of fun and make a bunch of power, but it's gotta be done carefully, so show some mechanical empathy. But I know you're wondering which is the idealist of them all. Well, I put my money where my mouth is, and nothing outclasses a Range Rover, especially for $1,500. And now that you know what spec to look for, check out the links to Auto Tempest in the description below and see if you can find your ideal ride. Do you own or have you previously owned any of these? Which one's your favorite? And if you had to spend your own money, which one would you buy? I want to know. Thanks for watching this episode. We'll see you guys next week.